It started with the sound of someone crying behind the restroom door. At first, I thought I'd imagined it, the kind of muffled sob that echoes strangely in an airport terminal, half lost beneath the drone of announcements and rolling suitcases. But then I heard it again. Sharper, desperate, a woman's voice. Please, just let me go. That was no misunderstanding. I froze outside the women's restroom at gate 43, my hands tightening around the strap of my duffel bag. My flight to San Diego was boarding in 15 minutes. My daughter, Emma, had just texted me a photo of her third-grade art project, a stick-figure family with the words, "Me and Daddy forever." But that sound from inside, it stripped every thought clean from my mind. There was a man's voice now. Low, aggressive. "Shut up. You made me follow you in here." Then another, a deeper growl, closer to the door. "Lock it. Quick." Two men. I didn't think. Didn't plan. I pushed open the door. The stench of bleach and air freshener hit me first. Then the reflection, two men cornering a young woman near the last stall. Her mascara streaked down her face. Phone shattered on the floor tiles. One of them had her wrist pinned against the wall. "Hey!" My voice cracked through the echoing tiles. Both toned, surprise flashing across their faces. "What the hell, man? This is the women's." I didn't let him finish. My body moved before my brain caught up, a reflex buried deep from years of muscle memory. I grabbed the one nearest to me, black jacket, maybe 180 pounds, by the collar and slammed him back into the partition. The thin metal shuddered with the impact. He swung at me, but his movement was wild. I ducked, hooked his arm, twisted. The old joint manipulation came back like it had never left. His elbow cracked against the edge of the sink, and he screamed. The second guy lunged at my back. I pivoted, blocking with my forearm, then drove my knee into his ribs. He folded halfway, and I shoved him hard. He hit the wall, gasping. "Stay down," I growled. The first one tried to rise again, spitting curses. I grabbed him by the front of his hoodie and slammed him down. "You done?" His head bobbed in a dazed nod. The woman was shaking uncontrollably, her blouse torn at the sleeve. I crouched beside her, keeping my voice low. "You're safe now. I've got you, okay? My name's Jack." Her breath came in broken bursts. They followed me from the food court. I thought they were gone. I pulled off my jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "You're okay. Don't move. I'm calling security." By the time airport police arrived, both men were handcuffed, still groaning. The officers asked a flurry of questions, names, details, everything blurred. The woman, whose name turned out to be Claire, clung to my sleeve like I was the last solid thing in her world. "Sir," one of the officers said after taking my statement, "you moved fast. You have training." I hesitated. "Yeah, Navy, retired." The officer nodded with a kind of quiet respect. "Good work. You might have saved her life." I wanted to say something. Maybe anyone would have done the same. But that wasn't true. Most people freeze. I'd seen it too many times. When it was finally over, Claire asked if she could buy me a coffee. She said it with this soft, trembling gratitude that made it hard to refuse. My flight had been delayed anyway. We sat in a quiet corner of the terminal cafe. She kept thanking me over and over. Every time she smiled. Shaky, tired. It felt like the world was briefly right again. Then she asked about Emma. I told her about my daughter, how I was raising her alone since her mother, Alyssa, had left 3 years ago. No dramatic explosion, just a slow unraveling. She said she needed space, and I'd been too proud, too numb, to stop her. Claire listened the way Alyssa never had. She didn't interrupt. She didn't look past me like I was background noise. We exchanged numbers when a connecting flight was called. I didn't expect anything to come of it. But that night, when I landed in San Diego and saw a text from her, I can't stop thinking about today. "Thank you again, hero." Something in me stirred I thought had long gone cold. I texted back. It started as casual messages about Emma's school projects, about her therapy dog job — she trained rescue animals — about little things. She had this way of making silence comfortable, and for a man who'd lived with ghosts too long, That was dangerous. 2 weeks later, we met again. Dinner. Then another. Emma liked her instantly. That mattered more than anything. Before long, Claire was part of our small, fragile routine. Sunday breakfast, beach walks, late-night talks that stretched until dawn. For the first time in years, I caught myself humming while making coffee, laughing without realizing it. She made me believe in peace again. But peace, I would soon learn, has a cost. Because every time she'd smile and say, "You saved me," I didn't know she was hiding something that would destroy us both. 2 months after that day in the airport, Claire's toothbrush was in my bathroom. I don't even remember when she first left it there, probably after a late night when Emma had begged her to stay for pancakes in the morning. It felt natural, too natural. Every morning, I'd find her humming while making coffee in one of my oversized navy shirts, her bare feet tucked beneath her on the kitchen stool, sunlight spilling through the blinds. She fit into the space like she'd always belonged there, like the missing note in a melody I hadn't realized was incomplete. Emma adored her. She'd sneak into Claire's lap mid-breakfast, hair still tangled from sleep, and chatter about her drawings and sea turtles and the stories Claire told about her rescue dogs. It was the first time I'd seen Emma's eyes light up like that since Alyssa left. Sometimes, watching them together, I'd get this dull ache in my chest, a dangerous kind of warmth that whispered maybe this time it'll last. But love, in my experience, never comes clean. It always carries ghosts. One Friday night, after I tucked him into bed, Claire poured 2 glasses of red wine and curled beside me on the couch. The movie we picked, Collateral, played muted on the TV, the flicker of gunfire lighting her face. "You still get that look," she said softly. I turned to her. "What look?" "That one. The one soldiers get when they're home, but still not." I tried to laugh it off, but her eyes didn't let me. She looked straight through me, past the facade I wore like armor. "Claire," I sighed, rubbing my temples, "there are things I saw over there that I don't talk about. I don't want to bring that darkness into this house, especially not near Emma." She nodded, fingers tracing circles on my hand. "You don't have to tell me everything, Jack. I just want you to know I'm not scared of your shadows." That hit deeper than I expected. No one had ever said that to me. The next morning, my friend Mason stopped by. Mason was one of the only guys from my old unit I still kept in touch with. Big, loud, unfiltered, but he had a good heart. He eyed Claire's car in the driveway and raised a brow. "So, that's a lady, huh?" I grinned. "Yeah, that's her. Hell, she's out of your league, man. You win the lottery or something. Saved her life in an airport bathroom." He laughed so hard he choked on his coffee. "You serious?" "Dead serious." "Well, that's one way to meet women. Remind me to hang out in more terminals." I shoved him playfully, but the joking didn't erase a flicker of pride that warmed me. For once, things were steady. Except, Mason's laugh faltered as he glanced at something on the kitchen counter, a small photo Claire had left from a charity event. "Hey," he said slowly, "isn't that the guy from Trident Logistics? The one running the naval supply contracts?" I looked closer. Behind Claire in the photo, smiling with his arm loosely around her, was a man in a crisp suit. Familiar. Too familiar. "Yeah," I muttered. "That's Ethan Rhodes." Mason's tone shifted. "You know him?" "Yeah, Alyssa's brother." That was the first warning bell. I ignored it. When Claire came by that evening, I mentioned the photo casually, watching her reaction. "Oh, Ethan," she said, a little too quickly. "He's just a client. We work with his company on donation transport for shelters." I wanted to believe her, and I did. At least, I told myself I did. Still, when she kissed me goodnight, my mind replayed that photo, Ethan's hand at her waist, the comfortable familiarity of their posture, the look in her eyes that didn't quite match the story she'd given me. Days turned into weeks. She kept staying over. We fell into patterns, school runs, dinners, late-night laughter, but underneath it all, a quiet unease crept in. I couldn't explain it, even to myself. Sometimes she'd get texts late at night and tilt the screen away before setting the phone face down. Sometimes She'd say she was at work events that ended past midnight, smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. I told myself I was paranoid. After all, I'd been alone for years. Maybe I'd forgotten how to trust. But Navy training teaches you something. When your gut whispers that something's off, it usually is. One night, I couldn't sleep. Rain hammered against the windows, and the house was steeped in a heavy silence that feels louder than any storm. Claire had said she was in Los Angeles for a weekend conference. But something in her last message, "Signal's bad, talk soon XX," gnawed at me. I opened my laptop. It took me 15 minutes to find the conference's official page. I scrolled through the photos. Booths, speakers, sponsors. Then I froze. There she was, standing beside Ethan Rhodes again. This time, not in a work pose. His hand was on her lower back, fingers grazing the fabric of her dress. The same soft smile I'd seen her wear with me. My throat went dry. A dozen rationalizations rushed in at once. Maybe it's staged. Maybe it's innocent. Maybe I'm losing it. But the ache in my gut wasn't reason. It was recognition. I'd seen that look before. Alyssa used to wear it, too. The small, nervous half-smile she'd give when she was already somewhere else in her mind. That was the night I knew peace doesn't last. And once again, I was about to lose everything. The next morning, I couldn't look at her the same way. Claire came back from her conference radiant and casual, tossing her overnight bag onto the couch like nothing had shifted. She wrapped her arms around me, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "Missed you, hero." But I stood still. My arms didn't rise to meet Hayes fast enough. Her perfume hit me first. Jasmine, yes, but under it, something else. Sharp, masculine, a scent that didn't belong in my house. "Missed you, too." I lied. She didn't seem to notice the tension, or she was good at pretending she didn't. That day I couldn't focus at work. My job as a security consultant was usually mechanical, risk assessments, access controls, corporate safety protocols, things that kept my mind in neat, predictable boxes. But every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. By noon, I was staring at her conference photo again, zoomed in on Ethan's hand at her back. The gesture wasn't overtly intimate, not enough to condemn, but it wasn't professional either. I thought of the words she'd used before she left. Just client, babe, boring stuff. Boring stuff didn't usually look like that. I closed my laptop, leaned back, and pressed my palms over my face. "Don't do this, Jack," I muttered to myself. "Don't start chasing ghosts." But the ghosts were already awake. That evening, I picked them up from school. She was buzzing with excitement, waving a small handmade card she'd drawn for Claire. "It's for her birthday next week," she said proudly. "Can we surprise her, Daddy?" I smiled, though it hurt. "Of course, sweetheart." The idea of Emma making cards for someone who might be lying to us twisted something deep inside me. But what was I supposed to do? Tell her the truth before I knew it myself? I couldn't risk breaking her heart again, not unless I was absolutely sure. That night, after I put Emma to bed, I opened my old laptop again. Years of military life had trained me to find things, people, connections, inconsistencies. It wasn't hard. Within minutes, I had Claire's company's registration pulled up. Logistics partners, vendor listings, sponsors. And there he was again, Ethan Rhodes, listed as a strategic benefactor. I sat back, staring at the screen, the room dim except for the glow of the monitor. Why would she lie about that? Why hide her connection with him? The next link I found was worse. An online magazine article. Inside Trident Logistics Charity Expansion. CEO Ethan Rhodes and consultant Claire Whitmore lead the charge. I clicked it. The photo hit me like a punch. Claire, standing beside him, wearing the same dress she'd worn on that conference weekend. Her hand on his arm this time. The caption, "Longtime collaborators and close friends, Rhodes and Whitmore have raised millions for animal shelters across California." Longtime collaborators. My breath caught. She'd told me they met only months ago. I closed the laptop with enough force to rattle the table. The rage came slowly, not loud, not explosive. It was a quiet, surgical kind. The kind you learn to channel. I poured a glass of whiskey and stared out the window into the streetlight glow. My reflection stared back, tired, older, a man who'd promised himself never to be fooled again. When Alyssa had left, it wasn't the leaving that destroyed me. It was a betrayal. The realization that she'd been gone long before she packed her bags. And now, that same feeling, the silent, creeping dread of being deceived, had returned. I finished the glass, set it down, and whispered, "Not this time." The next morning, I acted normal. Claire came by with breakfast, pancakes, her attempt at bonding with Emma. She wore a floral dress, her hair tied up, the picture of innocence. Emma ran into her arms. "I made you something." Claire knelt, smiling as she unfolded the handmade card. Her eyes softened. "You made this for me." Emma nodded. "'Cause you make Daddy smile again." For a brief, painful second, I saw the woman I wanted to believe she was. And that hurt even more. Later that afternoon, while Claire and Emma played outside, I slipped into the living room and picked up her phone from the table. It buzzed once. New message. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. "Ethan, you coming tonight? Don't forget the black dress." I got the sweet again. The air left my lungs. I scrolled. There were other messages, days old, casual, teasing, but unmistakably intimate. "Ethan, wish you were here instead of with him." "Claire, don't. You know it's complicated." "Ethan, he doesn't have to know." My hand trembled. I felt the familiar coldness that used to come right before combat, the moment when everything inside you shuts down, when emotion becomes calculation. I slipped the phone back exactly where it was. Outside, I could hear Claire laughing with Emma, that bright, carefree laugh that once made me believe in something real. Now, it sounded like a lie. That night, she left for work. She kissed me, said, "Don't wait up," and walked out. I waited exactly 10 minutes before grabbing my keys. The drive to the downtown Merritt felt mechanical. The rain had started again, tapping against the windshield in steady rhythm. Every red light gave me too much time to think about Emma asleep in her bed, about the quiet dinners, about every "I love you" she'd whispered in the dark. When I pulled into the parking lot, I almost turned back. But then I saw her, Claire, stepping out of her car in that same black dress. And him, Ethan Rhodes, waiting by the entrance, suit press, hand sliding to the small of her back as they disappeared through the revolving doors. That was it. No more doubts. I sat there for a long time after they vanished inside. My grip on the steering wheel tightened until my knuckles turned white. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to confront her or just drive away and never look back. But Emma's face flashed in my mind again. Her words, "You make Daddy smile again." I couldn't let her wake up tomorrow and see that smile gone, not without knowing why. So I got out of the car. The air outside the Merritt was cold enough to bite. Each breath came out white in the glow of the streetlights, my pulse thrumming beneath my jacket like a drum that wouldn't quit. I walked toward the lobby doors slowly, not because I wanted to, but because my body wouldn't move any faster. There are different kinds of fear. The kind you feel in combat is sharp, clean, focused. But this one, the kind that comes when you're about to confront the truth about someone you love, is different. It's murky, heavy. It drags your heart down like an anchor. The revolving doors whooshed as I stepped inside. The hotel lobby was sleek, sterile, all marble and warm lighting, the kind of place that tries too hard to look like safety. I scanned the room. 2 business travelers at the bar, a family checking in. No sign of her. I headed toward the elevators. A woman at the front desk smiled politely. "Good evening, sir. Do you have a room?" I flashed my retired military ID, looking for my wife, Claire Whitmore. She checked in about 10 minutes ago with Ethan Rhodes. Her polite smile faltered. I'm not sure I can." I kept my voice calm, steady. "This isn't a scene. I just need to make sure she's safe." She hesitated, glanced at computer, then whispered, "Suite 1107. I nodded once. "Thank you." The elevator ride felt endless. My reflection in the polished steel doors didn't look like me, eyes sunken, jaw clenched, shoulders tight. I'd seen that face before, just before firefights, when adrenaline burned away fear and left only purpose. But there was no battlefield here, Just Betrayal waiting behind the hotel room door. When the elevator dinged, I stepped out, moving quietly down the carpeted hallway. Room 1107. The numbers gleamed faintly in gold. I stopped, hand hovering over the handle. My heartbeat was a hammer in my ears. Then, faintly, laughter. Hers. My stomach turned. I leaned closer. Heard Ethan's voice, low and intimate. You worry too much. He'll never find out. Then Claire, soft, hesitant. He doesn't deserve this. Maybe not, Ethan murmured. But neither do we. Something in me cracked. I wasn't even aware I'd knocked until the sound echoed down the hall. Silence. Then a shuffle. Whispered voices. The latch clicked. The door opened halfway, Claire's face appearing in the gap, pale and startled. Her lipstick smudged. Jack? I pushed the door wider. Ethan stood behind her, shirt half-buttoned, drink still in hand. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence stretched, thick and unbearable. Then I said quietly, "Don't bother lying. I saw everything." Claire's mouth opened, but no word came out. Just a strangled whisper. "Jack, it's not what it looks like." I laughed bitterly. You said that to him too, or am I special? Ethan stepped forward slightly. Hey, let's not do this here. You need to calm. I turned on him so fast he froze mid-sentence. My voice dropped to that tone I used to use on new recruits when they were about to make a fatal mistake. You don't tell me what I need to do. His eyes flickered. He saw it then, the controlled fury under my skin. Claire reached for me. Jack, please, let me explain. I took a step back. Explain what, Claire? The late nights? The lies? The work trips? You played house with me and my daughter while sneaking around with him. Her face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Then how was it supposed to happen? She started to cry, quiet and shaking. After what you did that day, after you saved me, I thought I could move on, start fresh. But Ethan, he was part of my life before that. I couldn't just erase it. Part of your life, I repeated. You mean your lover? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence was confession enough. I turned away, hands trembling. For a second, I thought I might hit the wall just to feel something other than this hollow ache. Instead, I walked to the minibar, poured a glass of water, and set it down untouched. My voice came out low, steady, too calm. You brought him into our life, Claire, into Emma's world. You looked at my little girl, the one who made you cards and called you family, and lied to her face. She covered her mouth, sobbing. Jack, I love her. I never meant to hurt you or her. But you did. She reached for me again, desperate. Please, listen. Ethan and I were already over before I met you. But then he came back, threatened to expose some things from my past if I didn't. I cut her off. If you didn't what? Keep sleeping with him. Her silence told me everything. I stared at her for a long time, the weight of her words sinking in. I wanted to believe there was more to it, that she'd been trapped, manipulated, but the truth was simpler, uglier. She'd chosen deception. Claire, I said finally, my voice raw, I could have forgiven almost anything if you'd just told me the truth. She whispered, I was scared. Of what? Of losing you. That irony hit like a gut punch. I looked at Ethan. You're going to leave this room and stay the hell away from her, from me, and from my kid. If I ever see you near us again, you'll regret it. He raised his hands. Hey, man, I didn't mean. Save it. You knew she wasn't free. You knew she had a child who called her family. He swallowed, said nothing. I turned to Claire one last time. Pack your things. You're not coming back to my house. I'll tell Emma you moved away for work. She doesn't deserve to have her world shattered again. Jack, please. But I was already at the door. As I walked out, she called after me, voice breaking. I'm sorry. I never stopped loving you. I didn't turn around. I just said, you should have thought of that before you lied. The drive home was a blur of rain and headlights. I remember gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went numb. I remember the way the wipers dragged across the windshield like a heartbeat, steady and cruel. When I got home, the house was dark, quiet. I stood in Emma's doorway for a long time, watching her sleep. Her tiny hand clutched the stuffed turtle Claire had given her. That was when the first tear broke loose. Silent. Hot. I hadn't cried in years. Not when Alyssa left. Not when my father died. Not when I came home from Afghanistan and buried half my friends. But that night, I did. Because this time, it wasn't war or loss that broke me. It was love. The house felt different after she was gone. Too quiet. Too clean. Too still. It was as if a presence had left fingerprints on the air itself. The smell of her perfume lingering in the hallway. The faint hum she used to make while washing dishes. The folded blanket on the couch she always tucked her feet under during late-night movies. I tried to wash it all away. Did the laundry. Threw out her mug. Even took down the photos from the fridge. But grief doesn't live in objects. It lives in the spaces between them. And every time Emma asked, "When's Claire coming back?" the silence after that question was louder than any memory. I didn't tell her the truth. How could I? How do you tell a child that the person who made her pancakes and bedtime stories was just another ghost who didn't know how to stay? So I said the only thing I could manage. She had to go away for work. Sweetheart, she'll write to us. Emma frowned, but she promised we'd go see the dolphins. I knelt down, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Sometimes grown-ups break promises, not because they want to, but because they don't know how to keep them. She looked at me, too wise for her age. Like Mom. That one hit harder than I expected. Yeah, I whispered. Like Mom. The days blurred after that. Work, home, sleep, repeat. I moved through routines like a man underwater, seeing everything distorted through the weight of loss. At the security firm, Mason noticed first. "You look like you've been run over by a freight train," he said, sliding me a coffee one morning. I smirked faintly. Feels about right. He studied me a moment. "It's about her, isn't it? The one from the airport." I didn't answer. Didn't need to. He exhaled. "Jack, I don't know what she did, but don't let it break you. You've been through worse." I wanted to believe that. But heartbreak isn't like battle. You can prepare for bullets. You can't prepare for betrayal. That night, I found Claire's letter in the mailbox. No return address, just my name, written in her delicate handwriting. For a long time, I just stared at it, debating whether to burn it or open it. But curiosity, or maybe weakness, won out. Inside, there was a single page. "Jack, I don't deserve forgiveness, but I can't let you think what you saw was a whole story. Ethan wasn't just my ex. He was my mistake. Years ago, before I met you, I helped him with something that crossed a legal line. He's been holding it over me ever since. That night at the hotel wasn't what you think. He called me there to threaten me again. I shouldn't have gone, but I was scared. I was trying to protect you and Emma. You saved me once, not just from those men, but from myself. I wanted to tell you everything, but I thought if you knew, you'd never look at me the same way. I was right. Tell him I love her. She's the light I never had. Claire." I read it twice, 3 times. Part of me wanted to rip it up, call it another lie. But another part, the one that had loved her laugh, her warmth, her bond with Emma, didn't know what to believe anymore. If she was telling the truth, if Ethan really had manipulated her, then what I'd walked in on might not have been betrayal. At least, not in the way I'd thought. But if it was a lie, then I was just a fool clinging to scraps of hope. And I promised myself I'd never be that fool again. Over the next few days, I caught myself thinking about her constantly. Every siren, every phone buzz, every shadow in the kitchen made my chest tighten. I hated her for it, for still having that kind of power. One evening, while cleaning out the garage, I found the box she'd kept there, a small wooden chest with her initials carved faintly on the lid. Inside were the photos Emma had drawn, a few letters, and a flash drive. I hesitated, then plugged it into my laptop. There were documents, financial reports, emails, photos, most of them linked back to Trident Logistics, and one file marked evidence. I opened it. Screenshots of email chains between Ethan and other executives, discussions about falsified invoices, donations being funneled through fake charities. It was exactly what she described in her letter. The betrayal wasn't simple anymore. It wasn't just about love or lies. It was about danger. I sat back, heart pounding, realizing she hadn't just been lying to me. She'd been running from something real. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside felt amplified. The wind in the trees, the creak of the house, the hum of the fridge. Then my phone buzzed. A text. No name attached. You shouldn't have opened that file. My blood ran cold. I checked the window. Nothing. The street outside was empty. But suddenly, the quiet no longer felt safe. I locked the doors, checked on Emma, and sat on the couch in the dark, gripping my phone. Whatever Claire had gotten herself into, I was now part of it. And just like that, betrayal had turned into something else. Something darker. The message kept flashing on my screen like a warning flare in the dark. You shouldn't have opened that file. I read it again. And again. The words didn't feel like a bluff. They felt like surveillance. Like someone had been watching, not just me, but my choices. I turned off the phone, pulled the SIM card, and shoved it deep into a drawer. Old habits came back quick, the kind I thought I buried when I left the Navy. I checked every window lock, the deadbolt, even the sight lines from the street. My training told me this wasn't paranoia. It was protocol. But as I moved through the house, every creak of the floorboard carried the same question. Had I already put Emma in danger? By morning, I decided to visit Mason. If anyone could help me figure this out quietly, it was him. He opened his door, bleary-eyed, holding a mug of coffee. You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that, I said, stepping inside. He motioned to the couch. Start talking. So I did, about the letter, the flash drive, the text. Every word fell heavy as I spoke it aloud. When I finished, he stared at me for a long beat. You're telling me your ex was mixed up in corporate fraud, and now you've got people threatening you? Pretty much. He rubbed his jaw. You sure you want to keep that drive? If what you're saying is true, someone's probably willing to kill to keep that stuff buried. I nodded. That's what I'm afraid of. Then you need to disappear for a while, he said. Take Emma. Go somewhere safe. Let me handle this. I almost agreed. Almost. But I wasn't the kind of man who ran, not when the threat was circling this close to my daughter. I can't, I said. Not until I know what they're planning. Not until I know if Claire is still alive. That afternoon, I drove out toward the old marina, a place I used to go when I needed quiet. The sea always had a way of untangling my thoughts, even the dark ones. The air smelled of salt and rain. The horizon was gray, blurred at the edges. I sat there in my truck, staring at the flash drive. What if Claire really had been protecting me? What if she'd walked into that hotel room not for betrayal, but for leverage? I wanted to believe it. Good, I wanted to. But believing meant reopening the wound I'd been trying to stitch closed. And every instinct I had, military or emotional, warned me that reopening old wounds rarely ends well. As the tide pulled back, I caught movement in my side mirror. A black SUV had parked 2 rows behind me. No plates on the front. Tinted windows. I waited. 10 seconds. 30. A full minute. Then the driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall, gray suit, sunglasses even though the sky was overcast. He stood there, pretending to check his phone. My pulse picked up. I turned on the ignition, waited until he looked away, then eased out of the lot. Instead of heading home, I took the long way through back roads, checking my mirrors the entire time. The SUV followed for 10 minutes, then 15. When I turned down a side street near the docks, it didn't. But that didn't mean I was safe. It just meant they were patient. That night, after putting him to bed, I sat at the kitchen table, the glow from the laptop screen painting my face in cold light. I opened the files again, going deeper this time. There were payment trails leading to offshore accounts, money moving from Trident Logistics to shell companies in Singapore, then back through charities that didn't exist. And one name kept showing up in the correspondence, E. Langford. Ethan. So it was true. Everything Claire had said, the manipulation, The blackmail. It all traced back to him. My jaw clenched. She hadn't betrayed me for love. She'd betrayed me for survival. And I'd thrown her out without listening. The guilt hit like a physical thing. Sharp, cold, heavy. At 11:47 p.m., I heard a knock. Not a neighbor's knock. Not tentative or polite. 3 firm raps. Controlled, deliberate. I froze. Another knock. I stood, checking the side window. A figure stood under the porch light, raincoat, hood up. Then a familiar voice muffled through the door. "Jack, it's me." My heart stuttered. I opened the door. Claire stood there, drenched, pale, shaking. Her eyes darted past me, scanning the street. "Can I come in?" she whispered. For a second, I couldn't move, couldn't think. All I could see was the night I'd found her in that hotel room. The tears, the guilt, the confusion. Now she looked like she'd been running for days. I stepped aside silently. She came in, dripping water onto the floor, clutching a small bag to her chest like it held her last piece of safety. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. "They found me." "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. "Ethan's people. They want the files." She looked at me then, eyes wide and hollow. "Jack, please tell me you didn't open them." I didn't answer. Her face fell. "Oh, God." Before I could respond, a car engine roared outside. Headlights cut through the window blinds. Claire went still. "That's them." I grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the back. "Go. Now." "Where's Emma?" "Sleeping." "I'll get her." But even as I said it, the first crash came, the sound of the front door splintering inward. The sound of the front door shattering ripped through the house like a gunshot. Claire flinched. My instincts kicked in. "Back room. Go." I hissed. She hesitated for half a second, long enough for the pounding of boots on hardwood to echo through the hallway. I sprinted to Emma's room, heart hammering in my chest. She was sitting up in bed, eyes wide. "Daddy." "Sure," I whispered, scooping her into my arms. "It's okay, baby. Just hold on to me, all right?" I felt her tiny arms lock around my neck as I grabbed the emergency bag from the closet. Old habit from deployment days. You never stay unprepared. Claire met me in the hall, trembling. "They're in the living room," she whispered. "2 of them. Maybe 3. I nodded, leading her toward the back door. The rain outside was coming down in sheets, thunder rolling low across the sky. "Stay behind me," I said. When we reached the kitchen, I saw a shadow move past the doorway. Tall, steady, deliberate. Not rushing. Not panicked. Professionals. I motioned for Claire to crouch behind the counter and handed her the flashlight. Then I grabbed a heavy iron pan from the stove. Not ideal, but it would by seconds if needed. A voice called from the front room. Calm, confident. "Mr. Walker, we just want to talk." Claire tensed. "That's him." "Ethan." She nodded. I took a slow breath, keeping my voice low. "Stay down. Don't move unless I tell you." The footstep drew closer, the sound of wet shoes on the tile floor. "I know you found the files," Ethan said. "That was a mistake. Jack, you were supposed to delete them." I didn't answer. He took another step. "You're a smart man. You know how this ends. Hand it over, and no one gets hurt." Emma whimpered softly against my shoulder. I pressed a hand to her back. "It's all right, sweetheart." Then I stepped out. Ethan stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 men in black jackets. His hair was slick from rain, his face too composed for the chaos around him. "Evening," I said, voice steady. "Jack," he said with a smirk. "I was hoping we could do this civilly." "Breaking into my home isn't civil." He shrugged. "You left me no choice. You took something that doesn't belong to you." I tightened my grip on the pan. Funny, that's exactly how I felt about Claire. The smirk faltered. Just for a second. She'd tell you her version. Huh? The poor, frightened woman blackmailed by her evil ex. He took a step forward. She forget to mention she helped me build it all. Claire's voice cracked from behind the counter. "That's a lie." He laughed softly. "Oh, sweetheart, you were always such a terrible liar." The air felt electric. Every muscle in my body was on edge. I glanced toward the back door, only 10 feet away. Emma, I whispered, setting her down. Go with Claire, okay? Stay low. She clutched my sleeve. But Daddy. It's okay, baby. Daddy just needs to talk to these men. Her eyes were wide, shimmering in the dim light, but she nodded. Claire grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the door. Ethan didn't move to stop them. His eyes were on me. You really think you can protect them? I stared right back. You'd be surprised what 30 seconds can do. Then I swung. The pan cracked into the nearest man's shoulder. He stumbled back with a grunt. The second reached for something under his jacket. I kicked the chair into his knees before he could draw. Ethan lunged forward, but I caught him by the collar and slammed him into the counter. He groaned, gasping, still playing hero. No, I said through clenched teeth. Just a father. By the time Claire got the door open, the fight had turned into chaos. The sound of crashing dishes, grunts, and shouts echoing through the kitchen. Go! I yelled again. Run! I shoved Ethan backward and followed, slamming the back door behind me. The rain hit like cold needles. We sprinted through the yard toward the fence. I hoisted Emma over first, then Claire. As I climbed up, headlights flashed from the street. Another car, pulling up fast. We dropped into the alley and ran, water splashing around our feet, hearts pounding. Behind us, the front of the house glowed faintly, not fire, but flashlights sweeping through the rooms. They weren't done. We didn't stop running until we reached the edge of town. By then, Emma was sobbing quietly, her breath hitching against my chest. Claire was pale, soaked to the bone. We ducked under the awning of an old service station. I set Emma down gently, wrapping my jacket around her. Claire leaned against the wall, shivering. Jack, I'm sorry. I never wanted you in this. Too late for that, I said quietly. They're not after just you anymore. Her eyes glistened. Then let me fix it. I looked at her, rain dripping from my hair, heart pounding. How? There's a man, she said, voice shaking. He's with the bureau. I gave him copies of the files months ago. He can protect you, but only if we reach him first. I exhaled slowly. Where? She looked up at me. Seattle. I stared into the rain for a long moment. My old life, the Navy discipline, the code of survival, was roaring back. And I realized something in that silence. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about trust, the kind that's forged not in promises, but in survival. Claire had lied. She had run. She had hurt me. But right now, she was the only person who might get my daughter out alive. I looked at her. Then we moved before sunrise. We left before dawn. The world was still wet from the storm, the sky bruised with the last shades of night. The road shimmered under the faint orange glow of streetlights, and every passing car felt like a threat waiting to be named. Emma slept in the back seat, wrapped in a blanket. Claire sat beside her, silent, eyes locked on the window. The hum of the engine was the only sound for miles. Every so often, I'd catch Claire glancing at me, like she wanted to say something, but the words were too heavy to push past her guilt. I didn't speak either. There was too much between us. The lies, the half-truths, the danger chasing us like a shadow we couldn't outrun. By the time the sun broke over the horizon, we were already 2 states away. The landscape rolled into endless stretches of highway and pine. I pulled into a diner just off the interstate, one of those old ones that looked like it hadn't changed since the 80s. Inside, it smelled like coffee and rain-soaked leather. We found a booth in the corner. I ordered pancakes for Emma, black coffee for me, and nothing for Claire. She stared at her empty cup, fingers trembling slightly. They won't stop, will they? She asked softly. No, I said, not until they have what they want, or until someone stops them. She nodded, her jaw tight. Then we have to reach him before they do. Who exactly is him? She hesitated. Agent Marcus Hale. He was part of an internal audit with Trident before Ethan found out. He's been hiding since. I frowned. And you trust him? She looked up. I used to. Emma's voice broke the tension. Are we going home soon? Daddy? I turned to her. Her eyes were sleepy, her pancakes untouched. Soon, sweetheart, I said. We just have to make a quick stop first. She nodded, leaning against Claire. Despite everything, there was a quiet tenderness there, a small, fragile echo of the family would almost become. Claire brushed a curl from Emma's forehead and whispered, "You're so brave." Emma murmured something in return, half asleep. For a moment, it almost felt normal. Almost. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You can't hide from the tide forever, sailor. My stomach sank. I deleted the message, slipped the phone back into my pocket, and forced a calm I didn't feel. We got back on the road before the sky fully brightened. The miles blurred. I kept my eyes on the mirrors, scanning for tails, SUVs, sedans, anything that lingered too long. By noon, we crossed into Oregon. The plan was simple. Reach Seattle, find Hale, hand over the files. But simple plans are like glass. They look solid until pressure hits. And the pressure hit at a gas station outside Portland. Claire went inside to grab snacks. Emma was in the back seat coloring. That's when I saw him. Same gray suit, same cold expression. Ethan, standing by the pumps, phone to his ear, scanning the lot. My pulse spiked. He hadn't seen me yet. But he would. I started the engine. Hold tight, sweetheart. Emma looked up, startled. What's wrong? Nothing, baby, just a change of plans. I pulled out fast, tires spitting gravel. In the mirror, I saw Ethan turn, spot us, then gesture sharply. 2 black vehicles peeled from the side road and followed. Jack! Claire's voice cut through the panic as she ran out of the store, bags flying from her hands. I slammed the brakes just long enough for her to yank open the door and dive in. What happened? Ethan, I said, they are on us. She didn't ask how I knew. She didn't need to. The chase that followed wasn't cinematic. It was messy, real. The kind that makes your hand shake hours later. They stayed on us through the outer roads, their engines a low growl in the distance. I cut through back streets, dirt trails, even a half-flooded service road. But every time I thought we'd lost them, their headlights reappeared, ghost-like, relentless. Jack, turn left. Claire shouted, pointing toward a narrow overpass. I took it hard, the tires skidding. The car fishtailed but held. When we came out the other side, the highway stretched ahead, and, for the first time in hours, no lights followed. Silence filled the car, heavy and broken. Emma was crying softly. Claire reached back to hold her hand. I kept driving, my knuckles white on the wheel. By the time we reached the outskirts of Seattle, night had fallen again. The rain had returned, softer now, but constant. A city of glass and water, reflecting too many lights to feel real. Claire guided me toward an old apartment complex near the industrial district. "He's here," she said. "He uses a false name, apartment 306. We parked in the shadows. The air smelled like metal and damp concrete. I told Emma to stay in the car. She clutched her stuffed bear tightly, eyes wide. "Lock the doors, baby," I said. "We'll be right back." Claire nodded, shivering as we stepped out. Inside, the building was dimly lit, half empty. The elevator creaked as we rode up. My hand rested on a concealed knife at my belt, a remnant of old habits. When we reached 306, Claire knocked softly. No answer. She knocked again. "Marcus, it's me." Still nothing. She turned to me, panic in her eyes. He was supposed to. Then the door opened. A man stood there, mid-40s, unshaven, eyes bloodshot but alert. "Claire," he whispered. "God, you actually made it." He stepped aside. "Get in. Quick." The apartment smelled like coffee and paranoia, stacks of papers, files, and maps pinned to the walls. Marcus looked between us, weary but sharp. "You brought the drive?" I nodded, pulling it from my jacket. "This is what they're killing for." He exhaled. "Then we don't have much time. Trident's not just moving money. They're laundering defense contracts. If those files go public, half their board ends up in prison. And Ethan Langford DeLink, has been running the shell companies under his name. The bureau tried to build a case, but he had inside help. That's why I went dark. Claire's face was pale. Can we end this? Marcus looked at her, then at me. We can try, but once we hit send, there's no going back. I hesitated. It would mean exposing everything. Ethan, maybe even parts of my own life that I'd buried after the Navy. But then I looked at Emma's small face in my mind, trusting, fragile, unknowing, and I knew there was no other way. I nodded. Do it. Marcus plugged in the drive. The screen flickered, progress bar crawling slow. Outside, thunder rolled again. Halfway through the upload, the power went out, and from the hallway came the echo of footsteps. Slow, heavy, familiar. Clay's whisper broke the silence. Jack, they found us. The power outage plunged the apartment into darkness. Only the faint glow from Marcus's laptop remained, the upload frozen at 6 to 7%. Clay's breath hitched beside me. Marcus reached instinctively for the flashlight on his desk, but I stopped him. Don't, I whispered. They'll see the light through the blinds. The footsteps in the hallway grew clearer. Slow, controlled, like someone who knew exactly what they were doing. I moved silently to the window. 3 black SUVs lined the curb below. Headlights off, engines idling. They hadn't come to negotiate. I turned back. We've got maybe 2 minutes. Is there another exit? Marcus nodded toward the back. Fire escaped through the bedroom. Claire, I said, take him and go down first. I'll follow. Her eyes met mine, that same mix of fear and faith I'd seen the night I pulled her out of the airport bathroom. Jack! Go, I said. Now! The first shot cracked through the door like lightning. Marcus dug behind the desk. I pushed Claire toward the bedroom as it splintered around us. Move! She ran, clutching the flash drive. 2 more rounds echoed, the smell of gunpowder burning the air. Marcus shouted something, but I couldn't hear over the ringing in my ears. I grabbed a heavy lamp from the table and hurled it toward the door as a distraction. The figures outside advanced, silhouettes against the strobe of gunfire. I dropped low, rolled toward the hallway, and grabbed Marcus by the collar. Out the window. Now! He hesitated only long enough to snatch the laptop. In the bedroom, Claire had the window open, the cold night air rushing in. Emma was waiting just outside on the metal stays, her small body trembling but silent. Go, I urged, motioning them down. Marcus followed, clutching the laptop against his chest. I stayed until last. When I climbed onto the ledge, I heard Ethan's voice from inside, calm, cutting through the chaos like a blade. You can't save everyone, Jack. Not this time. The tone made my skin crawl. I toned. For a heartbeat, our eyes met through the broken doorway. He smiled, a cruel, knowing smirk, and raised his weapon. I ducked. The shot grazed a frame inches from my head. Then I dropped down the fire escape after the others. Rain slicked the metal steps as we descended. Every sound echoed too loudly. By the time we hit the alley, the sub's doors were already opening. Shadows poured out. Marcus pointed down the narrow lane. There, the pier. We ran. The city light shimmered off the wet pavement, reflecting the chaos behind us. Flashlights cutting through mist, shouts chasing the rhythm of our footsteps. At the end of the alley, the pier jutted out over black water. Old boats rocked in the wind. This way. Claire gasped, pulling Emma toward one of the moored fishing vessels. We jumped aboard, untying the ropes as quickly as we could. The small engine sputtered, coughed, then roared to life. As the boat drifted away from the dock, I saw Ethan emerge from the fog, rain plastering his chute to his frame. He lifted his arm, gun glinting under the pier light. I grabbed Claire, pulling her down. The shot rang out, a sharp crack swallowed by thunder. When I looked up, Marcus was on his knees, clutching his side. Marcus! Claire screamed. He fell forward, the laptop slipping from his hand and skidding across the deck. Blood spread fast beneath him. Finish it, he rasped, his hand finding mine. Send it. End it. Then his grip went slack. I swallowed the grief, forced my body to move. The laptop screen flickered in the rain. Still alive. I connected my phone's hotspot and opened the encrypted upload. Claire knelt beside me, shaking. Will it work? If the signal holds, I said. Jack, I never wanted any of this. I looked at her, rain running down both our faces. You made a choice, Claire. Maybe for the right reasons. Maybe not. But now you see what it costs. Her voice broke. I just wanted to keep you safe. Then trust me now, I said quietly. Let me finish this. Ethan's voice carried across the water. Jack, give me the drive, and you walk away. I ignored him. The upload ticked past 85%. 90. 95. Claire clutched Emma tight, whispering prayers under her breath. Ethan stepped onto the edge of the pier, rain dripping off his weapon. Last chance. The progress bar hit 100. I looked up at him. Too late. Then I pressed send. The file vanished into the cloud, mirrored across half a dozen government servers. Ethan must have known, because the mask slipped. His calm turned to fury. He raised the gun again, but this time I was ready. I lunged forward, grabbed the flare gun from the side panel, and fired. The flare exploded behind him, red light tearing through the fog. He staggered back, blinded, lost his footing, and fell into the dark water. The sound of his body hitting the bay echoed once, then faded beneath the storm. The next few hours blurred. We made it to shore miles up the coast. I carried Emma, still half asleep, while Claire followed in silence. By dawn, police sirens wailed across the harbor. Word spread fast, federal warrants, corporate raids, Trident's board collapsing under the weight of evidence. Ethan Langford's body was never recovered. That morning, as we sat on a bench overlooking the gray Pacific, Claire finally spoke. It's over, she whispered. I looked at the horizon, cold, endless, honest. For them, maybe. She turned to me. You'll never forgive me, will you? I took a long breath. Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. She nodded, tears mixing with rain. I wish I could go back. Me too, I said quietly. But sometimes you can't fix what you break. You just learn to live around the cracks. Emma stirred, resting her head on my shoulder. Are we safe now? Daddy? I kissed her forehead. Yeah, baby, we're safe. For the first time in what felt like forever, I almost believed it. 2 months later, the ocean had turned from gray to gold. Morning light rippled across the waves outside the small coastal house I'd rented, far from the city, far from the noise. Emma's laughter drifted in from the porch where she was feeding gulls bits of toast. That sound, innocent, unbroken, was the only thing that still kept me tethered. Claire had left the hospital a week after everything ended. She sent one message. I'm sorry for every truth I buried. Then she disappeared. No return address. No calls. At first, I told myself that was closure, that some things didn't need to be said again. But the silence began to feel like a wound that refused to heal, invisible, but always bleeding. One evening, a knock came at the door. When I opened it, a plain man in a dark suit stood there, the kind of man who didn't introduce himself unless he had to. Mr. Rivers, he said, flashing a badge I barely looked at. Mind if I come in? He didn't wait for an answer. Inside, his eyes swept the room. Neat, quiet, too normal for the things I'd seen. Congratulations, he said finally. You helped dismantle one of the dirtiest defense contracts in the country. I didn't reply. He studied me. You don't look happy about it. People died, I said. He nodded slowly. That tends to happen when truth surfaces. Then he placed an envelope on the table. We thought you should have this. When he left, I stared at it for a long time before touching it. No return mark. Just my name written in Claire's handwriting. Inside were two things. A letter and a flash drive. The letter was short, written in a hurried scroll. Jack, if you're reading this, they already know what I did. I tried to protect you, but I should have trusted you instead. Ethan wasn't working alone. There's one more file. One name you'll recognize. I hope someday you understand why I lied. It wasn't to save him. It was to save you. I'll always love you, even if that means staying gone. Claire. I plugged in the drive. The screen filled with encrypted documents, one after another, and then a single folder labeled Operative 47. My breath caught. I opened it. Photographs. Reports. A name. Commander Jack Rivers, Navy Intelligence Division. Clearance revoked. Status. Compromised asset. Filed by Claire Monroe. The world tilted for a second. I stared at the file, heart pounding. The timestamps dated months before the attack. She hadn't stumbled into Ethan's operation by accident. She'd been assigned to monitor me. The woman I thought I'd saved, the one I bled for, forgiven, tried to rebuild my life with, had been my handler all along. Outside, the sea kept moving, endless and indifferent. I walked out to the edge of the deck, the drive clutched in my fist. Emma's drawings fluttered on the wall behind me, stick figures of Mom, Dad, and her between us, all smiling. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of salt and rain. I closed my eyes. For a moment, I could almost hear Claire's voice again, soft and trembling. You can't fix what you break. You just learn to live around the cracks. Maybe she was right. Maybe all we ever do is learn to live with what's left. I opened my hand. The flash drive slipped from my fingers and vanished into the waves below. Then I turned back toward the house, where Emma's laughter echoed through the open window. And for the first time, I smiled. Because even when love betrays, life doesn't stop. It just teaches you how to start again.